there's going to be a great deal more change, in my opinion. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the concept of super conferences is starting to materialize and become a reality. And so, wasn't taken back by the move. Timing was, I don't know if there's ever a good time, but the timing was a little bit of a surprise. But anyway, like I said, it's things are moving, and we'll just have to wait and see when all the dust settles where we're at. And it's not settled yet. There's a lot more dust to come.
Do you, the commissioner, the Pac-12 is still a viable product moving forward?
And I think that the real proof of the pudding of that is going to be in the media rights deal, and see how that comes out. And if those numbers are right, then absolutely, the numbers aren't where we need them to be. Then look at other options. But it's right now it should be very unified. Pac-10, the 10 that are staying, and we'll see how it goes going forward.
And just one more. Obviously, you have experience moving conferences, having gone from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. What are some of the difficulties maybe that USC and UCLA face as they change conferences?
Well, they're going Power 5 to Power 5, so I don't see that as the same situation that we were in. But certainly going to be, getting a read on the different opponents. A bunch of new teams that they've never faced or faced very rarely. Travel is going to be a consideration. You're going to go 2 time zones quite often, and that's another something that's going to be how to handle that. You go a day early for all those games. Leave on Thursdays instead of Fridays, and so there's a lot of things to iron out in that regard. But as far as going from Power 5 to Power 5, I don't see that same as going from the WAC to the Pac-12.
I appreciate it, Kyle.
Thanks.
Hi, Coach. Bryce Miller from the San Diego Union Tribune. As a member of the conference in a bigger picture way in a couple of years when the LA schools leave, what's the importance of maintaining a connection to Southern California?
Well, it's certainly in our recruiting footprint, and we'll always have a connection to Southern California. Proximity to Utah, it's just an hour and 20-minute plane flight, so I think we're always going to have a presence down here. There are going to be maybe some Pac-10 games that are neutral site games that take place in Southern Cal. I think there's going to be, we'll figure out some ways to always have a presence, but we're going to continue to recruit Southern California, obviously, because like I said, I think, if we were to look at all the areas that we do recruit, the majority of our players on the roster are from the Southern California area.
Joe Radio AP. Kyle, you're the favorite in the conference in the preseason poll, defending conference champion, yet all the talk's been about the new coaches, Lincoln Riley and USC, and who they've added. You kind of feel like you're under the radar?
I would say probably not. I think that, there's, as you mentioned, new coaches in the conference, and everyone's interested in that and finding out more about those guys. And we've always traditionally been a team that likes to fly under the radar a little bit and play with a chip on our shoulder. And so we don't take offense to any of that. We're I think being chosen as the Pac-12, the early champion, I guess you could say, is a show of respect to our program and where we're at, and we've worked hard. It's been 11 years of hard work and recruiting to get to that point.
And then just with you guys, and how it impacted your program, especially, in terms of recruiting and devoting resources to that?
Yeah, NIL has had a big impact. I think we're on the right road towards NIL solidified and getting our ducks in a row. It definitely is becoming more prevalent in recruiting. This new class, this 23 class, is that's part of the equation. When you recruit, those are questions you get asked and you got to have answers for it. And it's become a decision maker for the kids, and where it's going to go, who knows? I don't know what parameter on it. I don't know if it can happen unless it happens at the government level, because right now there really doesn't seem to be a lot of enforcement of the NIL structure that's laid out. So we'll have to see what happens.
Adam Grossbauer, Orange County Register. Kyle, in the wake of the USC-UCLA move, how does your message to Southern California recruits change?
Well, you know, we're gonna be playing USC and UCLA for the next 2 years, at least that's, you know, as of this moment in time, that's what's gonna happen. So, the message hasn't changed a great deal. I'm sure with the next recruiting class, it's gonna become even more prevalent. But, you know, Pac-10 is, you know, the remaining Pac-10 is still a really good group of schools and competitive. And we'll just have to continue to formulate our recruiting pitch as we navigate through it. But right now, we've really had very little pushback from Southern California recruits, you know, based on what's happened. There really hasn't been much of an effect yet.
We have about 8 more minutes here with Coach.
Hey, what's up, Coach? Michael Matthew, TGN Sports. How important is the opening matchup that you guys have there in Gainesville? Just so you know, for the Pac-12 to be going against one of the premier schools in the SEC.
That's very important, and you know, every game obviously is important, but when you have a chance to go down to SEC country and play noise, you know, on the national scene, whenever we get there are opportunities like that. There's several other teams in the league that are going to have similar opportunities, and so we've got to make the most of it. And that's, you know, if you want to gain respect and gain you know, national attention, you got to come out and win some of those games, and hopefully we can, you know, go down there and play like we're capable of.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Coach?
Good to go?
Nope. Nope. Is there someone?
Oh,
Oh,
okay, am I supposed to call him? I'll call on you. I'm calling you, yeah, okay. You kept waving your hand, I thought you were giving hand signals or something. Yeah,
Lisa Horn, pigskingrowing.com. Congratulations, by the way, on last year's season. You know, you're going to the Swamp. It's a night game. I'm wondering if you could like whisper into the scheduling god's ears, would you prefer to lead up with maybe a a group of 5 opponent, or is baptism by fire just going into the Swamp in a night game with the fans all riled up? Is that something that, I mean, how do you reconcile that?
yeah, that's, you know, there's pros and cons. You know, you play a lesser opponent. You know, you have a chance to maybe get some of your younger guys some experience and ease into the season, I guess you could say, even though as a coach you're never easy into anything. But one thing it does is it gets your players' attention. And as far as their preparation, we've seen it starting in January, that these guys have been working their tails off getting ready for this game. It carried into spring ball, carried into summer conditioning. And when you have an opener like that, like we said, we got to be able to hit the ground running, and our guys are aware of that, and it certainly makes the focus and the work ethic in the off season a very easy thing to achieve because of the opening opponent.
And just a follow-up question, actually a different question. Utah, the back 7 of Utah, except front 7 of Utah, I've always been really impressed by it. What is it about Utah where you're getting these players? Is it just, I know you're probably going to say recruiting, but it's consistently excellent. It has been for like the last 10 years. How are you doing that?
Yeah, we've had a reputation and backed up by statistics defensively to be pretty stubborn and particularly against the run. And that's why, you know, philosophically, I'm a defensive coordinator by trade. And that's was always my philosophy is you play great defense by first stopping the run, and everything we do in our system is geared towards stopping the run, putting teams in long yardage situations, and getting after the quarterback. That's the short version. And we've been blessed with really good players. We put a bunch of guys in the NFL from our front 7 through the years, and it all rolls back to recruiting. Recruiting is really you know, the lifeblood of your program. 80% of your success or lack thereof is tied to recruiting, and that's something that I've maintained for years and years, and that's you know, been really the key is getting the right kind of guys into our system and then developing those guys.
okay. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay.
We'll have Coach Lanning out here from Oregon in just in a few minutes. Thank you.
from their second degrees, which is exciting for me. And obviously, we talk about our investment in education, but those guys are great representation of our program. Alex has been here, so I was able to lean on him to see what this day would look like. I'm really proud of DJ Johnson and the progress he's had this spring and the job he's done. So thrilled to have those guys represent our program here today. All that being said, I certainly couldn't pass the opportunity to recognize our first game, get to play a really familiar opponent in Georgia in a neutral site game in Atlanta, to our friend in Kirby Smart. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Okay, go ahead. Just remember to state your name and affiliation, and please speak up too, so we can hear you.
Eric Scopel, 24/7 Sports. You spoke to growth there a moment ago. I guess just what kind of growth have you seen at the quarterback position this offseason, and how far into fall will it be a competition? Do you have a deadline of when you'd like to make a decision?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Just at the end of the day, you want to know you have quarterbacks in your program you think you can win with. And I think we have multiple guys that can do that. You know, with Bo, Ty, and Jay, have all been extreme competitors, but probably more than anything, I've been excited with their passion to improve. You know, to be elite, you know, to be a special player, you have to go above and beyond. And all of those guys have really contributed to the success of what work they did this summer when people weren't watching. When there weren't people standing out there on the field assessing their efforts, those guys have put in a lot of extra work.
Coach Lynn Harrington, State Line, Bar 5, how you doing?
Doing great.
All right. To follow up on what you were talking about, the season opener going against your former team, I mean, are all the players fired up? It's not often, you know, teams get to open up against the reigning national champs. And, like, what's the emotions vibe around the team? Can you explain that?
Yeah, you know, honestly, we haven't spent a ton of focus on game one. I know our players are certainly excited to be on a national stage early and get to play, obviously, an elite opponent in Georgia that we're really familiar with, but guess what? They're also familiar with me. You know, that being said, we're really focused on right now, and you can't play game one until you have practice one. So that's our next approach.
And to follow up on that, just with the Pac-12 against the SEC, do you think that this game is so important for the Pac-12 overall, the national, you know, perspective for you to really put on the show what the Pac-12 is all about, and with the spring forward, you know, your team to, you know, run the table?
You know, our goal is to win every single game at the University of Oregon. So certainly it's an important game, just like every game is important. And then after that game, the next game will be the next most important game. So we're going to focus on that. Oregon, like I said, is a national brand, and it's fun to be in a place where you get to play premier opponents like Georgia.
Hey there, I'm Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. Given the changes that are happening within the conference, within the sport itself, NIL, transfer, super conferences, conference realignment, all of that stuff, how do you feel about just the direction that the sport is headed?
Say that last part again, please.
How do you feel about the direction that the sport is headed overall?
Yeah, it seems to be ever changing, doesn't it? You know, I've been asked a couple of times, what's it like being a first-year head coach, you know, in this environment? And the one thing I'll say is it's probably pretty similar to being a 15-year head coach in this environment, because everything's different. It continues to change. You know, I think what we do at the University of Oregon is we continue to put the focus of the players first. And I certainly want to see our players maximize their opportunities, whether that be through name, image, likeness. I think we're positioned really well to be successful there. But we want to play an elite competition. You know, I trust George and our leadership in conference to continue to point us in the right direction there. You know, but it's a fun, ever-changing day, and you always have to pay attention. And there's usually a headline when you wake up in the morning. So fun to adapt and be on those, and certainly different to coach in.
Eric Scopel, 24/7. Dan, speaking to that point, any conversations or how have you addressed the conference realignment stuff with USC and UCLA leaving, and how often does that come up on the recruiting trail? Is that difficult to navigate at all?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a conversation, and like I said, I trust our leadership to be positioned for success. Oregon's always been, you know, a premier team in college football, and I think we'll continue to be. Obviously, our fans are extremely passionate. You know, having been a top 10 team when it comes to views in homes this past year, and the ability to compete for championships year in and year out, with, you know, coaching changes and different things, that still allowed Oregon to be at the forefront of competition, and that'll continue to be the case with our support outside of just the university, but also within the university.
Hello, Coach. Kenneberry, Touchdowns, Kansas Media. In regards to, obviously you spent a lot of time at Georgia. Oregon, for years they chased USC, and obviously Georgia chased Alabama. But now that Oregon is kind of taking that next step, do you feel like they're still chasing, let's say, the ghost of USC's past success, or do you feel like Georgia, they've already kind of crossed that barrier and they're really just chasing their own?
Yeah, we're not chasing anybody. We're trying to maximize ourselves. We're going to be the best team that we can possibly be in the year 22. And our goal, like I said, is to win every single game. That's our goal. And we have the team, the ability to do it. Time will tell if we're able to, fill that void and do those things that are necessary to be successful.
And with all the success that Oregon's had taking top California talent, bringing a guy like Justin Flo, the best linebacker to come out of Cali, how do you, just a plethora of guys, how do you feel like that are they ready to take that next step? Do you feel like you have so much depth that it kind of could be anyone?
Kind of what?
As far as like the talent, the guys that you have coming in from Cali, top flight talent, do you feel like it's just anyone's game, or do you feel like certain people are kind of differentiating themselves?
No, I mean, ultimately, we want to recruit the best talent in the nation, right? And obviously, California is an important piece for us. It still is amazing to me how many kids I'll talk to. And the first time I talk to them, they tell me how Oregon's always been their dream school. Right? This place is, like I said, a national brand. We're going to continue to go recruit nationally, but we want to win on the West Coast and keep the best players on the West Coast as well. And certainly we'll continue to recruit California. I'm excited about the guys we have on our program already and our roster already for their continued success, and have high expectations for them.
And lastly, what's the biggest thing you took away from finally beating Alabama, and what's something that you've been hammering home to players?
Obviously I've had great experience in the last year and the last several years of my coaching career, but I spent very little time talking about the past. I'm really focused on the future. The one thing I'll say about that game and the national championship game is our ability to adapt and change. You have to go back, and when you lose to an opponent, it gives you an opportunity to really reassess yourself. And go back and talk about our theme for this season being growth. And I think that's a big part of it. Being a growth mindset means you have to learn from successes and failures, right? And we talked about it in the program I was at before. We'd go to the doctor after a win on Monday morning. We're going to do the same thing here at Oregon. We got to figure out what we can get better at, and hopefully you go to the doctor before you get sick. And that's certainly the goal for us.
Next for Stokes Digest. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great.
You guys have added a number of cornerbacks from your 2022 signing class, Kamari Terrell, Jalil Tucker, to name a few. What have you seen from those guys since they arrived in the summer, and how do you think they can help your cornerback group going into this year?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you'll notice about all those guys that we added in that room this year is they all have speed, right? They all have speed and they have length and size, which, to me, in my experience, those are really dominating attributes to successful, corners. And if you have speed, you make up for a lot of mistakes. I'm excited about those guys' work ethic. I think it's still early. There's a lot of a learning curve there, and not being able to go through all spring with each of them makes it a little bit tougher, certainly. But it's a group that wants to be great, and I have a lot of faith in their position coach, Demetrius Martin. He's done a great job, had a lot of success, and then our defensive staff to get those guys prepared and ready to roll.
This is a big season for a number of reasons. You're getting your start as a head coach, as we all know. But also, I think it's big because of where Oregon's at with their championship window and the timing of your arrival. What will success look like for you and the Oregon Ducks in 2022?
I think time will tell. Ultimately, I would tell you again, we need to win every single game we're supposed to win, but our goal is to win every one of them. And I feel like we have the talent to be competitive in the games that we're going to play in. Doesn't mean we have to play our best game every single week, but we want to improve. I want to see measured growth. So what success look like for us? Are we making the same mistakes in week 10 that we make in week 1? And I'd say no. right? If we're able to grow as a team and continue to develop and have that same mindset, I think that approach will be really special for us.
One more for you, Coach. You have a lot of versatile players on your defense. You have DJ Johnson here. Triquez Bridges is a guy that comes to mind. Jeffrey Bassa. When you're kind of getting the lay of the land of your defense, how do you think that versatility will really be able to help you?
Yeah, I believe in position versatility, and I believe in figuring out ways to have your best 11 players on the field. Another mantra of mine is always, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And if we have players that are good enough, we want to find a role for them on our team. We want to be able to have them contribute to our success. So when you have guys that can learn multiple positions, when you have guys that can move around and are smart and intelligent, at the end of the day, it only benefits your team whenever an injury occurs or a certain pressure package or personnel grouping can be changed to adapt to our strengths.
Eric Scopel, 24/7. I guess I'll say it again. To the injury front, Justin Flo, Brandon Doris, Popo Amavai were all limited or out for most of spring. You have any updates on those three?
Yeah, I won't spend a lot of time talking about injuries, but I will say all those guys are, are doing really well this summer, and we definitely think they're going to be a big part of what we're doing this season.
The last one for me is just on the transfer portal. Since we spoke class, additions of a couple offensive guys, Caleb Chapman and Bucky Irving. Can you speak to what those guys provide and maybe how much you expect they can impact this year's team?
Yeah, our focus obviously in the portal was to find guys that can make our program better and enhance our program, but also, marry that with the culture that we're instilling right now in our program, the investment in our culture. So those guys have been, phenomenal additions. They have great experience, that have firsthand experience in games, and they're working really hard this summer. So we have 54 newcomers to our program this year. So obviously there's a returning roster of some great talent, but we also have some great additions like those guys.
Blaise Collin, the Blue Pennant, France and Quebec. You were talking about speed, and you're just coming from the SEC, and there's this saying, maybe it's a myth, that there's more speed in the SEC. So what's your assessment about that?
I can't speak to it, not playing in this conference right now, but I know that speed wins football games, and I know we use GPS units every single day in practice and every workout, and we have some pretty good speeds out there. So I would say that we got some fast guys on our team, and that's something I'm excited about. I'm hoping the people we play don't have as many fast guys as us.
Hey, Coach. Will Decker from LA Football Network. You got to kind of pick your own staff as the head coach of Oregon. What made Kenny Dillingham the guy as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach to lead the Bo Nixes, the Ty Thompsons, and the rest of your quarterback group?
Yeah, Kenny's a guy I obviously have a ton of respect for. We've been around each other since Arizona State. We worked together at Memphis. He's a guy I talk ball with every offseason. We see the game very similar. He's a teacher. He's a guy that came up from grassroots, but obviously he's extremely intelligent and sees the game in a unique way. So really thrilled to bring him aboard. There's a lot of people that obviously want to be a part of our program, but Kenny's the guy that made sense when it came to QB development and seeing the game the way I saw the game and having a system. I think those things really fit. So excited about the direction of our offense and the job he's done with our offensive staff. Obviously there's some great pieces to that puzzle on that offensive staff with him, with Junior Adams, Drew Maringer, Carlos Lachlan, Adrian Clem, a lot of great experience on that side of the ball. It's going to help us be dynamic.
We have about 5 more minutes if anyone has any more questions.
Max Torres, Ducks Digest. Coach, when we were at this point about a year ago heading into fall camp in Eugene, the previous coaching staff was talking about getting to a dependable 2 deep. Obviously you're familiar with the roster now. What's that process look like for you now, getting to a dependable 2 deep across the board?
Yeah, in the spring, obviously we were down some guys. We had some injuries, so we didn't get to see every single player on our roster, really go through the spring and compete. And like I said, we had 54 newcomers, so some of those guys were able to practice with us and some weren't. That being said, that's our job as coaches, right? We're tasked with getting our guys ready to play and making sure that we ask them to incorporate systems that they can execute. So I think we have, like I said, I feel strongly that we have the roster to be effective. Obviously, any team that can be affected by injuries, we have to be able to adapt and put a great product out there on the field. And I think we're close to having a good roster for that.
Derek Peterson, Saturday Out West. Hey, Coach. Justin Flo was a preseason all-conference guy. sort of speaks to just how much potential he seems to have. As you look at him, how do you see him fitting into your defense, and what makes him special?
You know, Justin was another guy that I actually recruited when I was at Georgia, and obviously he's a dynamic athlete. He's a really talented player, you know, a specimen, and I think at this point he's played 5 quarters. So I think Justin would tell you, hey, there's high expectations, and he hasn't been able to, you know, execute the level he wants to yet because of injuries. So, you know, I have great belief in Justin, as well as, you know, all of our linebackers on our roster. We got a great group there, and that's something I have, you know, good experience with. I'm excited to see him continue to develop. I'm glad that he's healthy and ready to go perform.
Hi, Coach. Gerard Moncure, Fox 11 here in Los Angeles. Obviously, kids come to schools for all different reasons. Coaches, facilities, the prestige of the program, which Oregon does have on a national level. They also come for the reputation of the conference, and I'm curious if you're concerned about the message that coaches will have to, I guess, maybe change about the Pac-12 with UCLA and USC leaving in a couple of years.
Yeah, I have zero concerns, you know, from that angle and that front, just because I know how strong our brand and our product is, and I share a vision that our leadership in the conference and our, you know, to start, you know, Oregon's a brand that is national, and we're going to play premier programs year in and year out. There's some great storied history, obviously, in this conference, and I'm excited about that as that continues forward. You know, the conference champions, the last 4 years are still in this conference, you know, and that's something that I'm excited to see and compete against, especially for the next 2 years. I think the biggest way you control that narrative is you go and win games, and that's certainly our job at Oregon.
We have time for one last question.
Can I just follow up on, could you see the SEC and the Big Ten using this type of their super conferences against the Pac-12 schools, Pac-10 schools, in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, ultimately, I could certainly see people using that, but that doesn't mean it's going to be effective, right? Because, again, as I said, Oregon's a brand that can stand alone, and it's a team that's competed for championships in the last 12 years. There's only, you know, 8 other teams that can say that. So I feel really confident in our product. We're a brand that's built, and a school that's been built on innovation. We'll continue to be cutting edge, and those are all the reasons I came here in the first place.
Last question here for the gentleman with the mic.
Hey, Coach. Blair Angulo with 24/7 Sports. How would you describe the last 7 months as a recruiter now that you are a head coach?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun. You know, it's fun piecing together the talent. You know, and obviously we can recruit at a really high level, but it's also about bringing in coaches that are about relationships and development. And I feel really strongly we brought in a great coaching staff that is built on relationships, not just effort, not just a sales pitch. That's not our approach. It's built on real relationships. And when you have that, I think you can recruit at a high level. Certainly there's a lot of pieces that go into being a head coach, and you wear a lot of hats, but when you have a great team around you, it gives you a chance to be successful.
Okay. Coach, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. We'll have Washington up in a few minutes. Okay, everyone, we now welcome the Washington Huskies to Pac-12 Media Day. Everyone, we welcome Coach DeBoer. Open it up for Q&A. We have room, so if you have a question, please go to the mic and ask it in there. Take an affiliation and please speak up so he can hear you. All right, Coach, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good morning, and it's great to be here. I just want to thank you for spreading message of Husky football as well as the Pac-12, and I know we're excited for this. Worked tirelessly since coming in to January, building our team. We've had a great offseason from workouts to spring football, and now again summer workouts. I think we're certainly a team faster, leaner. Development of our current roster were important. We brought in a few players that I think will be difference makers, and looking forward to bringing it together here this fall. I think every day we can grow and have a mindset that where we're gaining more confidence, belief in what we're pushing and doing, and who we can be down the road. President Kause to our athletic director, appreciate all the support. It's really made the transition very seamless. It's been awesome getting to meet the people there in Seattle, and we're really looking forward to a great fall. So, looking forward. Any questions?
All right, anyone who has any questions, please go.
Good morning. I had a question actually about the 23 schedule. And the reason why I ask is because USC is presently on your schedule, but the conference hasn't decided what the schedule will be. So my question to you is, given that it will be one of their last years in the league, are you intent on keeping the USC game on the 2023 schedule for Washington?
Yeah, I mean, that is a question I hadn't even thought to focus on this year. To get our feet underneath of and so, you know, we're worried about week one. You know, we're going to play that Pac-12 schedule and whatever it be. So, you know, I haven't really looked forward to the 2023 season that much.
Lawrence Hanson with Cascadia Sports. What have you seen from your quarterbacks all three and Dylan this summer? Because you wanted to see some leadership. What have you seen from them that you haven't been able to see?
Yeah, no, that's obviously a big part of the program and in our offense, the quarterback position. And you know, Michael Hennick comes to us from Indiana, where you know I coached with him for 1 year. So systematically, he what we do, and you know that was an easy transition for him during spring. See him being able to coach guys up and being a little more confident in that. I think in those workouts that we had, as far as the other two that obviously were already on the roster, you know, Dylan, you know, again, I have only got the 15 practices to go off of in the film, but he's taken a lot of snaps, you know, in a Husky uniform. And you know, it's cool hearing the guys that are on the team and hearing them talk about how much they see Dylan's improvement from last year already to where we're at now. And that's only continue to happen and develop. And then, you know, you got the up-and-comer, you got Sam, you know, and Sam Heward took a few snaps again last year, and you know, his ceiling, he's probably the furthest away from his ceiling just because he's younger and hasn't taken as many snaps that the other two have. And so every day his growth is, you know, the one that probably and will continue to be the most extreme each and every day. And so it's fun seeing those guys. They're great high character guys. They understand, you know, it's a battle amongst all three of them, but first and foremost, our team comes first, and they all want to be the leader and the guy that takes the first snap on September 3rd. And they're doing a great job of doing it in a united way.
Hey, Coach. Michael Matthew here, TGN Sports. What do you think you guys are doing? You know, you guys been able to churn out some really top-notch defensive backs these last few years. You had guys like Sidney Jones, Marcus Peters, Trent McDuffie.
You all and take credit for that. That's something that I think is just a, you know, the DBU mantra has been something that's been strong, and the coaching staffs that have come before me have done a great job of, first of all, recruiting that talent and developing that talent. And you know, we're going to continue to feed off of that. And fortunately, the players that we have returning that we need to fill in, a Kyler Gordon, a Trent McDuffie position, you know, they saw what it looked like. And you know, they work every day to be those same players. Not that they, those are easy shoes to fill, but you know, our staff is excited about who we have, and I'm excited that these guys have had the experience to see those great players that you're talking about, and we got to continue to make it DBU in the future.
James Carpia from the Oregonian. Two more questions for you, Caleb. I realize it's been a dead period over the last month for the most part until earlier this week, but what has the fallout been on the recruiting trail of the LA schools leaving the conference, and just what has you been hearing from either your commits or the players you're recruiting? Because we saw earlier this week a player from Washington, a recruit from Washington, say that he was committing to USC in part because of conference realignment and then joining the Big Ten.
Yeah, and for us, it really hasn't had an impact at all, and it really hasn't. I've maybe had one conversation, and it was not something where it was really a player or a prospect having strong questions or concerns. It was just a discussion, just you know, talking and asking, kind of just like everyone else does, what they see the future being, And at this point, that's something I am not in control of, and really hasn't affected us at all.
And lastly, I realize this is going to sound like a silly question, but I promise it's actually serious. If an opponent withheld the heights and weights of their players, how would you view that as a coach? Like if game week against this opponent, you look at the roster, it's just names and numbers. How would you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's just, it's helpful and additional information that we use to understand what we're going to be up against. But, nowadays you can find the information you probably want somewhere, and somehow. And so it's probably just a little more digging that we'd have to put into finding that information out, so.
Hey, Coach, Kim Reynolds from Dogman.com. Coming into a situation like Washington, now you've had a spring camp. I'm sure you had a list of things that you prioritized in fixing or changing, and some were easier than others. What's been the most difficult thing to change or implement since you've been here so far and been through camp?
It's a good question because I don't know if there's been something that's really difficult. I have a number of staff members that have been with me, and so that continuity makes the transition easy. So that what's being said in the meeting rooms and how the summer workouts are going, because our strength staff, a few of them I've worked with, and our head strength coach, Mckee, who not just is important to the strength piece, but also the culture piece in the off season. I know what's being said pretty much daily because we're on the same page and we've known each other for so many years. In the installation of things, it's really gone seamless. I think the evolving of college rules have allowed us to have a little more hands-on with guys and be able to install things quicker than you could have maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago. And so that's lent us to feeling confident that when we step on the field next Thursday for our first practice, there's going to be a deep depth of understanding of not just what that play is, but the details and how we're going to run it and how we're going to execute.
Just one more. When we talk to high school kids, they say that the biggest adjustment from high school to college football is the size and the speed of the game. Going from South Dakota, I know you spent some time at Wisconsin where it was quite a bit different, and now from Fresno State. How big of an adjustment is it for what you want to do with the size and the speed of the game?
You're asking the size and the speed?
We're just adjusting what you want to do with different type of athletes that maybe you've had in the past and playing opponents with a different type of athlete.
Yeah, I've been around, I think what you always find is that there's great talent at all levels. There's at the higher levels, there's more of them. And there's not the weak link position that you're going to attack like maybe you did at the smaller college level. Everyone across the board, at all positions is strong. And so as far as schemes, and I think they've been tried and true and are, been a number of different places. And, I'm not worried. I guess I'm not really worried about that at all. It's not something that really crosses my mind. We've played on the West Coast the last 4 or 5 years, have a pretty good understanding of what that looks like and the diversity that comes with each program and at different levels. And so I've been out in the Midwest, played, pretty much from coast to coast at the different levels. So I'm excited to see what we were able to accomplish this fall. I'm very confident that we'll continue to build a brand of Washington football, whether it be offense, defense, or special teams. That'll be fun to watch.
Hey Coach, Shawn Raja, CBSSports.com. This was a team that 2 years ago was set to play in the Pac-12 championship game. Last year, obviously, a lot of turnover off the field. When you look at your roster right now, do you feel like this is a team that's closer to what it was 2 years ago or kind of what it was last year?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think the biggest thing goes back to one of the previous questions a little bit, maybe where the biggest difficulty has happened is just, you got guys that have been through a lot, right? I'm the third head coach since 2019, and it's turned over. And you got some guys that have had multiple position coaches. And looking back and to answer your question, what is really something that's comforting is, for example, the two guys I'm bringing with me today, Alex Cook and Jackson Kirkland. Guys on each side of the ball that were a part of a 2018 conference championship. Guys that are coming back for their 6th year. And they know what it looks like, and we have more players that are in that position as well that saw what it took, and they know what this program stands for and what the expectations are, and they know what it takes to get there. So I feel that it's probably somewhere in between, right? A championship kind of mindset, but really, the doing part and the action part is the hard part, because that's the day-to-day process that we're in the middle of right now. So, simplifying it down and just trying to focus on winning that day is what we try to do. Worry about the things we can control and make a name for the 2022 team.
You've had so much success with quarterbacks over your tenure. What do you look for in a quarterback, and how do you kind of develop them to the place where they need to be, especially when you've got different kind of talent profiles and skill profiles?
Yeah, well, the quarterback drives our offense, and you put position players and you recruit receivers and these skilled spots for a reason, right? It's to be able to distribute the ball. So that quarterback's got to be able to throw. Anything that they can do with their feet is just an added bonus. We obviously would love to have that, but we don't have to. Playmaking ability can come in a lot of different forms. And to me, distributing the ball is the first form. Anything they can do, extending plays and things like that, doesn't mean they're running for yards, but maybe they're keeping the play alive, eyes downfield. And I think of the past couple of years, some of our biggest plays have been when the initial play broke down. And so that playmaking ability is critical. But the passing talent, the arm talent that comes along with being a great passer is key. And then just, someone who's going to lead the charge, right? You need that toughness as a football team, and I think the toughness your quarterback brings is where it all starts. Your offensive line, your defensive line, your defense as a whole, yes, very important. But, the quarterback gets a lot of attention. We all know that. And, his resolve and his resiliency, his toughness is critical to our success for sure.
When you look at your other head coaching stops, where do you feel like over this offseason your team is on a progress curve versus maybe some of the places you've been before?
Yeah, I would say, they're all different, right? My first job was a small college. It was a place I had been for 5 years. That was an easy transition. The systems were all in, both sides of the ball, special teams. More recently, I think I felt good about, being at Fresno State. Then COVID hits, and now everything, especially with putting in a defense, all that was going to be new. That was changed. I feel like this is certainly the farthest we've been in really getting the culture piece together, because we've been able to be around our guys all spring, or winter, spring, and summer, as opposed to 2020, which allows you to, not just build that relationship that is important with each player and as a team, but also be able to install the schemes that we want to. And so, again, we hit the ground running on Thursday for practice. There's going to be a lot of reps that have been run by the players during the spring and also their summer workouts.
Hey, Caleb, riding on with rivals, what was your reaction when the USC and UCLA news came out? And have you just gotten to the conference and all of a sudden it's kind of thrust into some, how have you kind of dealt with that?
Yeah. Today's world of college athletics, college football in particular, you expect the unexpected. I think probably everyone was a little bit surprised, right? But you also know and expect that things are going to change, and they're going to continue to change. So you take it in stride and you make the most of the situation we're in. I feel like we're in a great spot at UW, and part of a conference that has a lot of things still going for it. So. We'll just, those again are decisions that are kind of out of my control at this point, and, I'm just worried about 2022 football season.
You had a pretty big last month recruiting-wise. What's been the process of establishing your staff on the recruiting trail and the response you've seen so far?
Just really proud of our staff, having a vision going back to when we first got together, the first weeks in January. And we had to put together, first of all, your 2022 roster, fill in the holes, but then we really really put our heads together and really did a great job of being thorough and understanding what we needed for 2023 and how we were going to do it. And we've had a lot of success. I think it's obviously come down to the relationships that you build with these gentlemen, is finding the right fit. That you want your program, and of course they got to want to be a part of it. We've studied what's been successful over the years at University of Washington, and when the great teams have happened, where a lot of those players come from, and just the tradition of where the prospects come from geographically as well. So I think we've honed in on some really high character quality guys, and probably why there's not really been a lot of more questions from our commitments as to what on in the world of realignment. So we're staff for having the vision and just, the work ethic to build those relationships.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Kalen, Dan Greenspan with the Associated Press. You hit on a little bit your experience at Sioux Falls. How different is life as an NAIA coach compared to BS level?
Yeah, it's not even comparable, to be honest with you. But going through those times are what give me the most confidence to be able to, I guess, you wear so many hats. You have so many different things that you do. I mean, I'm building lockers, right? My first year as a coordinator there, for your players, and you're doing equipment and things like that. You're the one, from making copies to printing playbooks to doing it all. And so those times you really understand the details, and you understand and appreciate what everyone a part of your organization is doing, and how much work they're putting into their job. And so I wouldn't trade my path for the world. Again, I've got a chance to see a lot of great coaches, being an assistant over the last 15 years. And, that's led to being at Fresno for a couple, where I've got a chance to again, reshape, who I am and what our teams are going to look like. And now I get a chance to do that at UW.
In these first few months at Washington, have you realized that there are differences even from one FBS school to another? Do you have different requirements, time management, things that you're just now getting used to?
Yeah, no question. I think, there's a greater involvement with the people. There's a higher level of intensity with the recruiting. There's more people involved. And I enjoy that. I enjoy being around the people. And, again, hiring a staff that can take care of those things the day-to-day, and trusting that progress is still being made, and not having to micromanage them every single minute, is again part of my path, and getting to know those people and having the trust in those people that I've hired.
Thank you.
We've got about 3 more minutes here.
Yeah, hey there, Kaylin, Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. As someone who came up through the ranks of smaller colleges, group of 5 schools, et cetera, what do you make of the direction that the sport is headed now with super conferences, NIL, maybe unlimited transfers, all of those things?
Well, I guess if you really you're talking about what the philosophy, right? And the philosophy is to make this one of the greatest experiences of their life. And, I think those experiences and giving these guys resources. So I think, again, NIL is providing resources to these guys, and continuing to do it right the way and embracing it is something I guess has been important to me, because this is a positive for them and it helps their experience. Being able to transfer in the portal, as much as I understand the issues with a few of the things that have happened, it's also, again, helping them in their limited years to play this sport, to get their education. It's giving them a chance, if that decision wasn't the right one or things changed as they've been at their university, doing it the right way, and hopefully going down in above board fashion. You know, it gives them an opportunity to go make the most of their educational experience in their football time.
Okay, time for one more? Time for one more?
Hello, Coach. Quinn Perry, Touchdowns and Tangents. How big was it for you to get Jackson back and also to kind of keep that secondary together?
Yeah. It's huge. Not because he is, okay, it's huge because, you know, Jackson's a guy that bleeds purple. You know, his dad was a great football player at UW. It's an important place for him. The conversations go back to January, early January, when this first all started happening, and it took a long time and to evolve to where we knew he was going to be able to wear a Husky uniform again. And during that time, it's been really special seeing how important this place is to him and how great of a teammate he is, even during the waiting period of finding out what he could do and what was going to happen. You know, just seeing him have the resiliency, having the patience, while he continued to just focus on doing what he could do to help himself be ready, you know, if he was able to step on Husky Stadium again and play ball for us. So the DB position, guys like Alex Cook and Asa Turner and you know, Mish Powell, their return is really important. And obviously it's a new system, but they've really picked up on it. They're very intelligent players, and I'm excited to see them along with what our, you know, havoc is that we're going to cause up front, and seeing what we can do defensively. But those DBs, having them back is really important, and I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
You bet.
Appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll have Colorado in a few minutes.
Squeeze by here, sir. I think you just scoot in. Maybe. Okay, I appreciate it.
So yeah,
Wish I was skating, that'd be nice to get up. Wish I was skating, that's the reason. I can't scoot in. I got you.
we'd now like to welcome to the stage the Colorado Buffaloes. Coach Terrell to the stage. He'll give an opening comment here, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Again, the microphone is here in the back. If you have a question, go ahead and just step back there. State your name and affiliation, and make sure you speak up so you can hear you clearly. Coach, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I love the intro music, so props to the crew doing that. Welcome to the media day. Carl Terrell here, the head football coach of Colorado. Excited about a new season. Excited about a new opportunity that's in front of us, and to build off of the process that we're building in Colorado. Challenging season a year ago for us. We played with a lot of young players. I believe we had 68 freshmen and sophomores on our football team that were playing primarily. I think we've made a lot of progress, even though it lacked in terms of the number of wins. But we did gain a lot of experience through the process of training and developing young players for them to have a chance to compete at that level and to use that experience to develop going into this season in 2022. Like I said earlier, we're very disappointed in the results of our season. And the way that I operate as a coach in my 34 years of coaching is that when things aren't right, you got to make things right. And so I don't ever try to celebrate a lack of successful seasons, so we had to make some changes. I made changes primarily on the offensive side. I have 4 new coaches there that are here, and they've done a great job of reinvigorating and reinventing our offense. Along with that, the development of the quarterback position, I think, was very critical too, for us to have more competition and more suitors for that position. If you guys remember, I had 2 scholarship quarterbacks for the last 2 years. My first year in 22, last year in 22 or 21. Now that room has 6 scholarship quarterbacks, so it's good to have more numbers there and more competition in that room, which is going to push the envelope for that position to play much better as well. So big change on the offensive side. We did change our offense completely from scratch. It's a new system. So we're excited about that process of how the players have taken that information, the offensive players I'm talking about, and digested it and performed it and continued to do that over a process of time between the off season, during spring, now in the summer, and finishing up the summer. It was a really good summer for them to kind of continue to develop and to mature in terms of being in that system. We do have a couple of new additions on the defensive side as well. New corners coach. We have a new defensive line coach. The other 2-3 coaches are still here, but we feel like there are some things that were needed to be done in the off season for us to make the incremental steps of success, moving forward. The season a year ago was disappointing. Obviously, that changed a lot of dynamics within our program. Obviously, the portal is part of everybody's process and what they deal with, year in and year out. It's going to be kind of a natural process of, I would say, attrition that's going to happen year in and year out. It's been affecting all of us. It affected us as well. But the positive of that is that we were able to build our team, with some guys that are like-minded, with players that are on the same page, with a staff that has been very invested in these young people. So we've come where it's come full circle with our effort, attitude, work ethic, determination, everything you want to think of is all moving in the right direction. So I feel like from the process of the off season and spring and then a great summer that we just finished up today, we're ready to go for 2022.
All right, we'll open up to questions. Again, state your name and affiliation and speak up in the mic. Thank you.
Coach Lynn Harrington with Stay Alive in Power 5. How you doing? Right here.
Okay, there we go.
All right, I got a three-part question for you. First off, I want to start off with your quarterback, Brandon Lewis. You know, can you briefly describe his maturation process? I mean, I know he struggled a little bit with throwing the ball last season, but can you explain like some of his improvements, you know, with the new offensive coordinator and learning a new scheme, approaching fall camp?
Absolutely. So Brandon Lewis was our starter a year ago, started 12 games, started and played and stayed healthy for 12 solid games last year. And the best part of that is that he played for 12 games for us last year. You know, he had a great, you can use that as a year of being the starter, gaining so much experience about playing in the Pac-12 and particularly some of the non-conference games we had. And I would say this in answer to your question, the first thing he came to me after the season is that he went back and watched all the games just by himself and made notes and critiques about what he could have done better and what he did well and what he needs to improve on. So he went through that process for himself, you know, at the end of the season. And, you know, to his credit, he's invested a lot of time and blood, I would say sweat equity this last offseason to develop into being a better quarterback than where he was last fall. And there's no question in my mind, in his mind, he's not even the same player. And, you know, it's like anything. You gain from that experience, whether it's good or bad, you learn from that experience. That's what Brendan was able to do. And he had a great spring where his efficiency and his numbers and his accuracy in throwing would look much, much better. Continue that into this summer. So I'm excited to watch him when we go into training camp next week.
My second part of the question is about your other quarterback, JT Shroud. You know, can you describe, you know, his recovery process from the injury and getting back into throwing drills? And do you expect him to make a big push in competition at your fall camp?
Yes, we're hoping that he's healthy and ready to go, which he is. He was somewhat healthy this spring, but we held him back. We didn't want him to do any competitive scrimmage-like scenarios for him in the springtime, but he did the 7-on-7s. He was still working on some conditioning and some movement drills, but so I stand corrected. He might have been maybe 90-95%. He's completely 100% right now. He does everything that everybody does in terms of their summer training. So he's ready to go. You know, I would say with JT, his challenge is JT. You know, I would say that just because he hasn't played the game in a year. You know, it's just him getting antsy, you know, understanding the competition of it all, stuff like that. You know, he just needs to come out here and perform really and do the things that are just comfortable for him to do, kind of get back into the rhythm of being sore and being beat up and stuff like that he's been missing for the last year and a half. Those are things that he's going to have to kind of take it day by day. But we are excited that he is healthy. He's ready to go. He should push the envelope a little bit. I'm excited about the competition. So it's going to help us be a better offense.
And my last question is, can you briefly just discuss the competition in your running back room, you know, with Alex Fulton and then the other rushers? Can you just briefly discuss each?
Sure. So we got two returning guys that were key players from a year ago. Deion Smith played later in the year last year with Alex Fontenot, who was kind of a stable player for us. Even when I first got here in my first year in 2020, he had a great 2019 season. That 2020 season, he had an injury that took the rest. He didn't get a chance to play in the 2020 season with the injury of that year. But then last year, he did get a chance to get some playing time, but he did have some soft tissue injuries that kind of delayed his production a little bit throughout the season. But those are the top two between Alex and Deion. Both of them had great off seasons. Both of them are over 200 pounds, which was kind of one of those mandates that I wanted them both to be, is to get a little bit more muscle, girth and depth in terms of those things. So, you know, they look better physically. They've digested the offense. They understand that both of them are kind of our leaders of being the 1-2 punch for us offensively. We do have some good younger players, though, you know, that'll be kind of, you know, fighting to get some playing time, but it's going to be led by those two. And it's a hungry group. You know, it's a hungry group. And they understand with Jared Broussard moving on and going to, you know, graduating and moving on, that, you know, now it's their chance to really rise and shine, and that they're excited about that opportunity.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Billy Witt, Benavidez with the New York Times. Carl, I want to ask you a question, not as a Colorado football coach, but as a UCLA alum and former player. How did you feel about their move to the...
I knew that was coming up. You know, it was probably shocking. It was my first impression. It was shocking. You know, being in this conference for over 100 years, it's kind of, I would say that was the first initial impression was that. But you got to also recognize that when I came back to Colorado in 2020, COVID hit 3 weeks later. I mean, it was a lot of things that have been challenging and changing for me every year. So it was like, what was one more thing? You know, what's one more thing? Guys leaving the conference. So it's just, I think it's that time things are evolving, you know, in college athletics. And, you know, some things that have been grandfathered in, so to speak, you would think, or, you know, everything has susceptibility to change. And, you know, there's certain things that happen, and, you know, this is a situation that, you know, this has happened. But as humans and as we all evolve throughout the years, you know, we'll evolve and adapt and move forward. But it was shocking, I would say.
Hey, has it, just in, I guess, the last month or so, the conversations you might have had with, you know, your former teammates and just, you know, guys of your era as a player, has it come up, and what might those conversations have been like?
Well, there's question marks. It's like there's a question mark above my head, you know, about, well, what does that mean, and what does that look like, you know, moving forward? We all don't know. You know, we don't know what that's going to look like, you know, moving forwards. But I wish them the very best. You know, obviously, you know, that's the school that has made me into who I am today, you know, as a coach. And you know, I don't wish them any ill will or anything. We want them to be successful, and obviously that's something that's part of my background. But right now, there's an unknown feeling about what is it going to look like. You know, all those things that will come together in time. All right, thank you.
Hey, Coach. Jamal Magny, Los Angeles Football Network. As you enter year 3 of your tenure here with the Buffs, what are some things that maybe you've learned about yourself as a head coach, strategically, culturally, recruiting-wise, that maybe you can take from your first go-around in the conference as head man at UCLA?
Well, it's actually tremendously different than that go-around, just because, you know, with social media, which wasn't prevalent at that time, that's the major draw that's going on now. NIL is kind of a bigger thing that wasn't around. So there's been a number of things that have changed in terms of the dynamics in recruiting and coaching and things like that. And, you know, the other part too is that, you know, I've learned in a great deal of time since my UCLA experience, a great deal of information about, you know, coaching. So, you know, I've had some people in my background that have helped me become better at what I do as a communicator, as a guy that teaches, and obviously in terms of the organization of things. So, you know, I would say going into year 3 for me right now, and I mentioned that statement that I don't rest on mediocrity. I don't rest on things that aren't successful. You have to make changes, and I think those are the things that I was able to do. I was fortunate enough to do with my athletic director being on the same page with me. And so we need to challenge ourselves year in and year out about being successful and trying to put your best effort forward year in and year out. That's what our players are expecting us as coaches to be. And that's what that's kind of how we are charged as a program, is to be in the competitive marketplace in this sport. And we haven't done that yet. So we're still pushing ourselves to get into that marketplace. And we think that this year is going to be a good testament at going into year 3 of really showing some of that progress that has been made over these last couple of years.
Thanks, Coach.
How's it going, Coach? Keiji Patterson, the Daily Emerald. Nate Landman has kind of been the anchor of your defense for the past few years. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what goes into replacing a guy of that caliber.
Yeah, that's challenging. As you know, you have a great player in any position, and Nate's been a great player for us. You know, prior to even me being here, you know, he's been a great player, and he's going to be a great player in the next level. but it's like most things, is that you try to, utilize some of his thoughts and mindsets of using some of that experience when he was a teammate last year, of giving some of that information to our guys that are still here in the program. So it's hard to replicate that other than what Nate can do. And Nate has done a great job of being back home when he's here in the off-season. Matter of fact, he was here about a month ago in June and has spent about 2 weeks here training and being around our guys and telling them about their experience, his experience with the Falcons, and telling them about what he should have done better here at Colorado, that he was pointing to the players to pick up where he left off. So I think he's done the best thing that any former player can do, was to help set the stage for the next group. And so we feel we're in great shape. We feel that the depth at the linebacker position is the best it's been since I've been here. And we think that the quality of talent in that position is much, much better too. So there's some guys that are just no names for us, but we did add a couple guys. You're going to have a guy that I brought here to talk to you later, and Robert Barnes. He's one of those linebackers. We added another one from the transfer portal with Josh Chandler, who is also here. So he's not here, but he's in our program. So we've added a couple of veteran pieces, but collectively that position is actually a lot stronger than it's been, since I've been here.
Follow-up question. You've had a group of athletes nominated as preseason all-conference players, one of them being Quinn Perry, who's in that linebacker room. Can you just talk about your expectations for Quinn and how he's worked this offseason and how he could improve going forward?
Absolutely. Quinn has had a really good offseason, and he's trying to change his body. He's trying to look more athletic and look like a prototypical linebacker. I think the best thing that for Quinn, and this is something that's a testament to Nate. Nate has taken Quinn under his arm last year when Nate got hurt, to help, because Quinn had to finish the season at his position and really help, his progress, as the season unfolded towards the end there. So hopefully he'll carry some of that information that Nate was able to express with him and be coached and continue to physically develop and have a tremendous year this year. It's good to get a little recognition, early on for him, from his efforts from a year ago, but he's doing everything that he should be doing for him to have a successful year. So, everything now is just in front of him staying healthy and doing what he's capable of becoming.
Thank you, Coach.
You got it.
Hello, Coach. Quinn Perry, Touchdowns and Tangents. In regards to the senior class that you have, how important have they been for you? Since COVID happened and right now, and even people transferring out the program, how important is that senior class?
It's a great question, and it's probably a unique question, and because they did come in and look at, let's reverse the lens here. When I came here in 2020, I was probably their third coach or fourth, who knows? And they survive a COVID season with a lot of change that we all talked about and know about. They go into last year with some expectations that we didn't get a chance to meet, but I think they understood where we were heading from a cultural standpoint. So they're a big mouthpiece for us now, and I'm very indebted to these seniors because they had to buy into my message at this point in time for them to have the type of goals and aspirations set for themselves this season. And they've done a tremendous job. They really have. But I don't take that lightly, just because when I said on the onset of that question, or answer for that question, is that I'm their third coach, and it's hard to build that trust in such a short period of time. Who do you trust? This is the third guy, And I think that I have to give them credit for giving me the opportunity to build this program, and them spreading that message in the way that they're doing it is helping us become the team we're capable of becoming this year.
And when you look at teams that you've coached in the past that may have exceeded expectations, or even most historically, like your UCLA team that went on to beat Oklahoma, had all that great success, what do you see from this team that compares to past teams that you've coached?
That's a great reference, which you just mentioned there. That was like year 3 at UCLA for me that year that you're talking about when we beat Oklahoma.
Ranked
here in the
21.
Rose Bowl. So, I'm expecting that jump for us this year. We have a great foundation. The foundation's there. Now we're building the talent, we're building the room, building the roster. So I believe you're going to see a quality team this year, a team that's going to be very competitive. A team's going to win more games than they won a year ago. Now that's contrary to the feeling that's in the room, but that's the expectations that we have. We think we have a chance to be a very successful team. But you have to start with your week one, and we got to take care of business and do the things we're capable of becoming. But I think the maturity in this program, particularly from the leadership, the older players, are much stronger than they were a year ago. So we have a chance to meet the goals and expectations we set for ourselves.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
About 5 more minutes for Coach here.
Josh Newman, Salt Lake Tribune. Carl, what makes Utah so tough to play, and why are they worthy of being the pick to win the league?
I think Kyle is an outstanding coach. I've known Kyle since my UCLA days when we played against Utah, and I think we split those games, and we lost in Utah and we beat them in our place. But he's an experienced, accomplished coach that knows what it takes to win. And he's been doing it for a number of years, and that's why he's still there. So I have a lot of respect for what they've done, in this conference, and now being members of this conference and being, we're in the position they are. They've done a tremendous job. So I would say it's because there's continuity. There's obviously a guy at the helm that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. He's got a great staff, and they recruit, and so they do things right. So I would give him, those are part of the reasons why they are who they are.
And just to follow that up with the continuity, what does it do for a quarterback when he has the same offensive coordinator for his entire career like Cam Rising has now with Andy Ludwig?
Continuity means if you can keep continuity, it's like in the stock market over time. That's probably a bad reference, but probably over time, historically, you come out on the better end. That's what people say. Am I saying that right? You people that are involved in the stock market. Can't say it right now, but it seems like it's pretty challenging. But the point of the matter is, continuity, there's a better chance correlation, of that's going to be a consistent factor for success.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Have time for one more?
Hi, Coach. Ron Milhorn from Colorado West Broadcasting. What do you foresee, given the massive changes in college football in the last 2 years, what do you foresee as the biggest challenges as a coaching staff in terms of recruiting and retention of top players?
That's obviously the retention of players is challenging because of the ability that's allotted for these guys to transfer. And I think it's a positive thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's something that makes it a challenging proposition when you're managing a program. I would say the other part too is them having a chance with NIL to continue to build on their brand. Those are challenging. Both of those realms of the portal and NIL is going to make everyone's leader of every program feel like they have to balance their roster, each and every year. That's going to be challenging. Thank goodness that the NCAA has given us the latitude of just taking away the initials in terms of scholarships each year, because they're allowing you now to replace what you've lost, and sometimes those numbers are more than what the initials were. Now that that's thrown away and is allowing us to balance our 85 scholarships, that gives us a chance to to be full force by the start of every season. So there's challenges. There's absolutely challenges, but it's just like the thing with the conference realignment. I think we kind of move on and adapt and find a way to do it correctly, and things will be fine. So it's just getting comfortable with the changes that are in front of us. Thank you.
We'll squeeze one last one in here.
Dennis Freeman, News for Us Online. Coach, how is your program helping your student athletes navigate the NIL
How is the program navigate? Say that one more time.
How's your program helping student athletes navigate NIL?
We're doing it in as best fashion as we can. It's one of those things, we do have, we call it influencer exchanges and programs that are within our department that are setting the table for NIL for our student athletes. So we're doing some very proactive work with getting them established through the process. Now, the challenging part of it is that we can't actually make deals for them. They can't be the broker between this guy and this player. We can't do those things, but we can give them all the information they need to put them in position to have that type of exchange, if that makes sense. So it's making progress, I would tell you. I would say that's probably the right way to say it, is that because it's new for everybody, we're making progress in that area, but we need to continue to move forward in that area as we keep going forward, through this thing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Arizona will be up next.
Is the wireless working yet? Yeah, it will. It was working better when she left. This is yours. Well, I just think once people kind of fade out, it's going to start working. This is a violinist.
The music, like
Shit, it's hip hop.
Just a reminder to everyone here
He's doing it. It's a
that
Chris Brown
we have
song.
video and
Right.
transcripts
It's a
of all the
Chris
press
Brown
conferences
song.
up here on the stage. If you didn't get the link from me earlier this week in the email, and the QR code on the back of your credential, and I'll take you there as well.
It's not like easy listening. It's not like jazz. It's like, is there one transcript?
So this is an R&B song that the violinist is playing. So I think instrumental. Yeah. It's a
I'm
violinist.
just trying to describe it because I ask people and I get a different answer. It's jazz. It's easy listening. Not this song, but earlier.
Okay. But I think it's been the same though. I wouldn't say it's jazz.
Almost like spa music. Spa. You getting a massage?
Yeah.
Listen to this.
I would classify this as jazz. I would say it's jazz. Be above all those. I would say jazz. Because it's an instrument. That's why I would say jazz. Because they're just doing covers. They're just doing covers of pop songs.
All right, everyone, we now welcome the Arizona Wildcats to the stage. All right, we'd like to welcome Coach Fish to the stage here. He'll give opening remarks, then we'll open up to Q&A. Again, we have the microphone in the back there, so if you have a question, just please walk up to the microphone, state your name and affiliation, and make sure you speak up so Coach can hear you. Coach, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good morning. It's great to be back here in Los Angeles for our media day. Lived here for 3 months. I want to congratulate them first and foremost, Coach McVay, Les Snead, Kevin Demoff, on being Super Bowl champions. And when you have a chance to be in a championship town, it feels good. And we're excited here at University of Arizona to be back here and to be here in Southern California. This is a huge part for our recruiting. We are a California-based recruiting program. We have committed as much time and energy as possible to commit to recruit Southern California, and that is our goal moving forward. We have done a really great job with our coaching staff in recruiting the state of Arizona, California, and Hawaii, and we will continue to do that and make Southern California a pipeline for the University of Arizona. I've heard a lot of coaches tell our recruits that we're an off-season team, and I would say this: we have had a great off-season, and I appreciate them recognizing that. I also believe that we're going to be a really good in-season team. And as we're building our program, it was really important for all of us to make sure that on November 26th of last year, when our season ended, we needed to get better. We need to get better in every way. It was our first opportunity to recruit. Was our first signing class, and according to Rivals, I think we finished #1 in the Pac-12. According to 24/7, I think in the top 3, and we're very proud of that. We signed the highest-ranked player in the history of University of Arizona football, in Tetero McMillan, right here out of Southern California, and really excited about what he brings, what Kean Burnett brings, what Noah Fafita brings, what Jacob Manu brings, all 4 guys from Servite, along with the guys that we signed from Rayshon, Speedy Luke down there in Bosco, a couple players from Modern Day, and from Oaks as well. So really excited about how we committed to making our off-season pretty special in recruiting, and also how we made our off-season pretty special with our facilities. In the last 15 months, we spent $15 million. And every part of that was to rebrand, enhance, and make our facility top in the conference. We're excited about having a brand new indoor facility that's just 2 years old. And then everything else in our facility has not been, has been redone since I've arrived. Our athletic director, Dave Hickey, has done an amazing job of allowing us to do that. And I think 1980 to 2000, University of Arizona football won 63% of its games. They were 3rd in the Pac-12, tied with USC during that time. From 2000 to 2000, or 2001 to 2021, we did not do that. And we're sitting in a situation where we were winning about 45% of our games. We need to change that, and that is our goal, and that is what we'll do. We believe that this year is the first year of the rebuild, and we're really excited about how that's going. We talk to our players all the time about being the 33rd NFL team based on our experiences in the league. We have 150 years of NFL experience on our staff, and what we've done is we've tried to commit to allowing our players to see it from the inside out, to see what the NFL NFL looks like, to see what it looks like to be a pro, and to see what it looks like to build champions. We brought Bill Belichick into Tucson, Sean McVay to Tucson, Steve Spurrier to Tucson to talk to our players. Our players have heard from Zach Taylor, from Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl, from LaCharles Bentley at the NFLPA, Mike Tannenbaum and Mike Lombardi over the last 7 weeks. We believe that our guys need to know and hear what it likes to be a pro and what the program should look like. Additionally, in the off season, we've committed to having an incredible NIL program. As of yesterday, our NIL program and our collective is a 501c3. So we're the second team in the country, from what I understand, that our boosters are able to commit funds in a charitable way to our NIL collective, the Friends of Wilbur and Wilma. We are very proud of that. We're also proud of the fact that our university has come out publicly and said we're going to support Alston and the Alston case with the 5980 fund. And we're going to allow our players to benefit from their academic successes. Again, we're excited about all these things that have occurred between November 26th and today. And now when we get started on Wednesday in training camp, it's now time to build off of those successes. We have a bunch of new players and new coaches that have come in through both the coach transfer portal and the player transfer portal. We're also looking for fans in the transfer portal and boosters. So any of those guys that want to transfer in, we'll take them as well. But when it comes down to our coaches, we brought in Johnny Nansen and we brought in Jason Kafusi, who have done a tremendous job with our program and our defense. And then we brought in players like Jaden DeLora, who's coming in here as one of the best players in the conference last season, the freshman Pac-12 Player of the Year. At quarterback, Jacob Cowan, who's here today. At wide receiver, Hunter Eccles, defensive end from LA, DJ Warnell, nickel safety from this area, Tia Savea, and many others. And then finally, I would say that the players that have been here and have been a part of our program have bought in tremendously to the changes that we're trying to do this year. And we brought Christian Young to this event. He has done an amazing job of leading our defense as a safety. Guys like Christian Roland Wallace and Keon Bars and Jackson Turner have been game changers for us in that locker room. And we're excited to watch them go. So I believe that everything is in front of us. Champions have to behave like champions before they become champions. And we've asked our players to behave like them. And now it's our job and it's our goal to be better this season than we were last and continue to build off of our off season. So thank you very much. And any questions you have?
Hey Coach, Shawn, J. Roger, CBS Sports. You mentioned it a little bit, but you know when you're coming off a 1-11 season, you know what's kind of the pitch like when you're bringing in transfers like you guys did? A lot of guys with a lot of options and felt like this was the right position for them.
Yeah, I think they saw that where we were is not where we're headed, and what they program that I believe offers everything you could possibly want in an incredible environment, in a beautiful community, and an opportunity to play as we can help you get to the next level if that's what you aspire to do. We know what it looks like in the draft room. We know what it looks like when it comes to successes. And additionally, we felt as if we needed to get some of those pieces in place, and they felt like they could immediately impact the results.
This is really the first year of the rebuild. What do you think you learned most from kind of what you experienced in 2021?
How important it is to be able to compete for all 4 quarters. For us, our players never stop playing and never stop competing, but sometimes our depth beat us, and it was really our problem depth at a lot of positions.
And last thing, do you think that maybe historically have competed more in college football?
Yeah, I hope so. I think that a lot of people talk about that they can get you to the next level or they know what the next level looks like, but you actually have to be there to know it. I feel like it gives us an opportunity based on the relationships that we have with coaches at the next level to be able to talk with them and kind of see what they're looking for and see how the trends of the NFL has changed. And as we share our message with our recruits and our players, we're going to do everything we can to get you a chance to be at the next level. And then it's up to you after that.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
At that time, when if we do move conferences, I mean, I won't be part of it. So at the end of the day.
Hey there, Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. You mentioned right off the top how you are a Southern California or California-based recruiting operation. With USC and UCLA leaving the conference, does that change anything in regard to your approach?
Well, I hope what it does is when parents are making decisions on wanting to watch their children play, they don't have to get on a plane and fly into Newark. They don't have to get on a plane and fly into Iowa. They don't have to get on a plane and fly into Ann Arbor. They get to just get on a car and drive 5.5 hours, and next thing you know, they're at Arizona. And then they can be able to watch their sons play right here on the West Coast and right in primetime television. And we're hopeful that that's going to be a huge benefit for us moving forward.
How do you feel about the roster today compared to how you felt about it a year ago?
We're better. This year have improved. They've committed to being better in the weight room. They've committed to being better in film study. They've committed to being better fundamentally. And the players that we've been able to bring in, we brought in some good football players. What it looks like come Saturday, September 3rd is very different than how I feel right now. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if our team can come together in this training camp and how well we can play as a team. And if we can do that, then I think we'll be a better football team as well.
Sure. And one last one. Keon Barnes and Jamari Joyner had foot surgeries right at the start of spring practice. Can you give an update on their health status?
Yeah, I believe both of them will be starting. I think they're both clear to go. So I look forward to watching both of them be able to participate. They've all done a great job with rehab. We came out here to LA for surgery, and but we used the Rams physician and did a fantastic job in getting both those kids back healthy.
Hey Coach, Will from LA Football Network. I just wanted to ask, you had the two transfers come in, Jay Delora and Jacob Cowie, two very talented players that are just kind of starting to learn how to play.
Better than the spring practice the year before, I can tell you that. We were able to hit on a lot of passes. We were able to be explosive. We were able to make plays out there on the field. And, you know, it was fun to watch them. It was fun to watch what they did. They connected pretty well together. And then along with that, we also had T-Mac was here this spring and Dorian Singer. So the receiving core, while young, two freshmen and a transfer, gives us.
And you referenced Bill Belichick and Sean McVay. Speaking to your guys, self-learn with those two coaching.
Yeah, well, both of them players learn the importance of competition in everything you do and the importance of communication in everything you do. You know, you listen to both those guys speak and they could speak in their own way and say their own words, but their messaging is the same, that it's about how do you compete every day, get every day. And if you can, it's different, but in the end, our staff, myself, and our team all learned that from those guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Dane Miller, Super West Sports. What do you expect Stevie Rocker's role to be this season?
I'd expect him to do one of two things, be one of the best special teams players on our football team. I've challenged him to do that, and then to be able to find a role and get the ball as a running back. You know, we got one back room. We just received a transfer from Florida State a few weeks ago, who will be arriving on campus today. We've got Michael Wiley returning, Drake Anderson returning, Stevie Rocker returning, Jalen John returning, and then Rayshawn Luke and Jonah Coleman arriving. So it's going to be a great competition this summer. And, but every one of them should be committed to being great on special teams if they're not carrying the ball.
And when do you expect to name a starting quarterback?
Jaden will take all the reps with the ones.
Josh Newman, Salt Lake Tribune. Jed, how are you?
Great.
What makes...
Well, first they're the champions last year in preseason, so I think they should be picked ahead of time. They have a returning quarterback, which is always a huge part of your successes. I would also say Coach Whittingham is the standard. He's the standard. He's 18 years at Utah as the head coach. He does it the right way. His teams play hard. They play tough. I'm shy in talking about how I admire. And you could see why they are who they are. We had a very good football game against them a year ago. And I just admire the way they play all 4 quarters.
And just to follow that up, when a quarterback has the continuity with the offensive coordinator, as Utah does, it's Cam Rice's 4th year, same OC. What does that do for the maturation of a quarterback to have that continuity?
Yeah, I think that it's without a doubt the key to success is continuity. I think the biggest issue that so many programs lack of continuity, and they've had a lack of consistency, whether it be at a head coach or at coordinators or at quarterback. If you're able to have consistency and continuity, you've got a chance to be pretty successful. What was exciting for the University of Arizona is that when you could bring in the freshman player of the year, then you feel like you've got some continuity moving forward. I call the plays on offense, so I feel confident that the coordinator will be there. So therefore, that relationship between he and I is critical to our success as we move forward.
Thank you, Jed.
Thank you.
We have about 5 more minutes.
Good morning, Coach. Kenneth Berry, Touchdowns and Tangents. In regards to that recruiting class that you brought in that's so talented, how many of them have stepped up and kind of become leaders maybe before someone their age would necessarily normally would become one? Like how much is that young talent kind of rising to the challenge for you?
Yeah, I would say without a question that, you become a leader in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's performance-based, sometimes it's talk, sometimes it's actions, sometimes it's just kind of presence. We wanted to bring in players that have won games. I think that was a huge part of it. So if you look at our recruiting class and you look at their high school records, they know how to win. And you're respected in the locker room if you're coming to the program. Those guys are going to have to immediately impact the program in a lot of ways, and their ability to be a winner and their ability to understand what it takes to be a winner, the process that it goes into becoming a winner, and showing that they're willing to do that will give them the best chance to become leaders quickly. But we have some good veteran leadership of guys that have been in this program over the last few years who have embraced our program, and those young guys will need to learn from them as well.
And with that, I mean, obviously Servite, that's kind of a big, those schools in California, that's a huge recruiting base for you. How has that relationship grown in your time? Just based off your past experience, because you've had NFL people come in, you had Gronk come in. How easy is it for high school players to trust you in that regard, to know that you can get them to the NFL?
Well, I think that it comes down to tell the truth. Tell the truth as a coach. Tell the truth, and then if you commit something, show them that you're going to do it. If you're going to tell them that you're going to be around NFL players and coaches, then make sure there's NFL players and coaches in your building. If you're going to tell them have accessibility to some of the greatest in the profession, or some of the greatest that have played at Arizona, make sure that they're there. And if you can actually hit on those targets, and you can actually those commitments that you made and make them happen, then you'll earn their trust. So when we tell our guys, you're going to hear from people like Bill Belichick and people like Sean McVay, and then Bill Belichick and Sean McVay walk in your building, then you know that that what you're telling them in recruiting is not just a sales pitch, but it's actual reality. And I think that's what's been critical for our staff. And that's where I respect our coaching staff so much.
And lastly, how big is it to kind of beat regional schools, that you play like out of conference? Like let's say you come across the San Diego State, Mountain West schools like that. How important is it to get those wins to kind of strengthen, the program back?
I mean, without a doubt, we all understand the importance of winning football games in the conference, out of the conference, whatever games you schedule. We're playing a 12-2 San Diego State team that's opening up their new stadium. That's going to be a great challenge. And we're looking at 12 conference to play a game. We recognize the challenge, and we're playing the national champions, North Dakota State. We recognize that challenge. We're excited about it, but we don't look at it in terms of one win's more important than the other. We're just going to go out there and play our best football and then see what happens.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
One more. Hey, Jed, Dave Greenspan, Associated Press. With Territoria specifically, what gives you confidence he'll be able to jump in and make a huge impact as a freshman?
With who? Tataroa?
Yeah.
Well, he's a really good player and a great kid. And when you have that marriage of a great person with extremely high character with physical talent, it gives you your best chance to be good. Now, he's going to be a freshman, and he's going to take some lumps. And we understand that and recognize that. But what you know is if he's going to be a hard worker, if he's going to be committed, and if he's got the raw talent, it gives you some hope and really a great feel moving forward that he's going to be able to impact our team, not just September 3rd, but every week after, and then for the next few years. Okay.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, we'll have Stanford out here in a few minutes.
Throughout my life, I've been avoided like sleep on me because of my height or my weight or anything like that. So I think
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we all squished up in here.
Oh yeah, no, we have a lot of time. We can just we have going to see the team that they done every game. Let's get on that something to say. So all of them play, especially when I think they all have a special ability to act. That's hard. Oh, most definitely.
All right, we have Coach Shaw here on the main stage. The players will be joining us on the stage on the left here shortly. Coach will give an opening statement, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And again, a reminder that the microphone is there in the back. Just state your name and affiliation, and then be sure to speak up so the coach can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you for the easy listening before I came out here. I don't know if that was a compliment or not. Appreciate it. Really excited to be here. Excited to get going with our guys. Many of you know we had a difficult time through COVID, as we all did, but in particular the Bay Area, with the restrictions and the understandable approach, conservative approach to COVID, really hampered our football team. And it's just so nice to have an off season now that started in winter conditioning, full winter conditioning, full spring football, full summer conditioning. Our team is bigger, faster, stronger than it's been in many years. Really excited about getting back to not just survival football, but attacking football. Very excited about the strengths of our football team right now, which many of you will talk about. Starting with Mckee, who had some really bright spots last year. Never had all three of his starting receivers at the same time the entire time last year. Missed some time with injury. Had a lot of ups and downs, but you saw a lot of bright spots in there. And I'm really excited about him taking the next step, along with our receiving core. We think we've got one of the best group of guys in the nation. Excited for those guys to get going. I think we've got a guy who's a complete running back, both can run it and catch it, make some explosive plays there. We've got an age and maturity on the offensive line, Excited about that group as well. So excited Caillou Kelly came back. He's going to be one of the top corners in America this year. Very excited about him. Led the conference in pass breakups last year, and anticipate that happening again this year. We've got an aged secondary, an experienced secondary, a group that will play well together, a group that has been a good leadership group for us on our football team, not just on the defense. Our linebacking core last year, anytime you watched us last year, you saw 3 out of our 4 inside linebackers playing with, as I call it, a Q-tip on one hand or the other. The injuries were really difficult last year. A lot of them were bone injuries, broken hands, broken wrists, things that we couldn't avoid. Our linebacking core is age and experience. Our edge rushers we're really excited about, including David Bailey, an incoming freshman that came to us this spring, has really put some good film out there for us to watch. We're young and inexperienced on the defensive line, but we're also very athletic and physical on the defensive line. So as a football team, I think we're much better than we were a year ago. Definitely much better, and excited to get going. As far as all the college football stuff going on, realignment is realignment. It's been happening for a couple of years now. Surprised about the news in our conference, but my hope is, as I've been saying all years, that our relationship with USC and UCLA doesn't change, that we continue to play each other even if they're out of conference games. These are long-standing rivalries that I hope that we maintain. I'm still a firm believer that over time, these things will self-correct, whether that's 10, 15, 20 years down the road, whether it is at some point completely reforming the conferences by region or becoming super conferences, whatever, who knows. But for right now, we love being in the Pac-12, and we can hope to maintain those Pac-12 relationships with the other 10 institutions and continue to play high-level football. It's still an incredibly deep conference with some great coaches and a lot of great players that we're really excited about. I'll just touch very briefly on NIL and transfer portal. From my perspective, there are positives with both and negatives with both. As far as Stanford goes, we've taken the positives out of both. We've had very few guys leave us. We've had very few guys join us as transfers. Our active money that exchanges hands for people to make decisions, once again, that hasn't really affected us. We want our people leaving Stanford and talking about doing great things and big things. And I'll take the comparison between McCash and Hen right now and a Stanford degree 20 years later, and I know which one's going to be more valuable. And the people that we recruit understand that. So we really haven't been affected by NIL. Has been good for us, but this other thing that people are calling NIL, which is not in the NIL, hasn't really affected us, and it won't going forward because we're going to continue to recruit the right people the right way. And at the last couple of years, we'll tell you that we're going to get the young people that we want to get. The only year that we haven't been a top 25 recruiting class is the year of COVID, where people couldn't visit Stanford. And visiting our campus is a deal breaker. You can't visit Stanford. It's hard for us to explain Stanford over the phone. Many of you have been on our campus, and it's a special place. So we're going to continue to recruit at a high level. We're going to play at a high level. And one of our missions as Stanford football program has always been is for us to be an example of how it's supposed to be done in college athletics. And we're going to continue that. So I'll take some questions.
Hey Coach, Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. You touched on how the sport has changed and continues to change in so many ways. How does that hit you as someone who's been kind of a steward and spokesman for college football for a while now?
There have always been change. There's always been change associated with college athletics. These are just more drastic changes, and a lot of them are happening at the same time, which has been the biggest difference. The bottom line for me is and some people take this as a negative, and I will stand up against that. I want college athletics to be college athletics. I don't want it to be professional athletics. I don't want it to be professional. Now, I want our young people to take advantage of their opportunities through NIL and through other opportunities. I think there are a lot of different things that we can continue to do to help our student athletes through health and safety, through yes, other monetary avenues, which I think would be outstanding to help our young people. But at the same time, I don't want to hire and fire college athletes. I want to bring them in. I want them to be students. They're 18, 19 years old, and 20 years old. I want them to enjoy college. I don't want them to be professionals. I don't want that to change. I don't want that experience to change. I want them to be on our campuses and be college kids and stay up, playing video games at 2 o'clock in the morning in the dorms. Like, I want them to have those experiences and then leave us and become professionals in whatever their chosen profession. So that's the biggest thing for me, is handling these changes and making the adjustments that we need to make in order to continue to have college athletics and continue to have the other opportunities for the other sports. These monetary things have put so much focus on football and men's basketball, but college athletics can't just focus on those two sports. We need to do what's right for all the other sports too. So that's my answer to that question, is to maintain college athletics the way that they are, for not just for those two sports, but for everyone.
Coach Lynn Harrington with Stay Alive Power 5, how you doing?
Doing great.
All right. So they say great quarterbacks make others around them better, and you run your quarterback Tanner Mckee here at Pac-12 Media Day. Can you briefly discuss his maturation process and how he impacts the offense?
Yeah, Tanner is, you probably hear me, he's over there, but Tanner's an outstanding person, just a great human being. All the way back from recruiting, he's just one of those people that when you talk to him, it makes you feel good about humanity. He's just a really good person. And now, over the years, that really good person has a really good fire, right? And that's a great combination that you want. You want a quarterback that the guys like, but the guys that they also respond to him. When he says, get your butt going, he means it. And our guys respond to him. And he brings his own fire, his own energy, his own juice. And what I love is we've got a great leadership council. I'm so proud of these guys for what they've been able to instill in our team this offseason. And for that great leadership council to also point to Tanner and say, of our leadership council, this guy's the leader of our leaders. That says a lot about him as a person, him as a football player. And I'm really excited for this year of football for him, because I think he's really going to show the ceiling that we saw from him years ago.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Hello, Coach. Kenneth Berry, touchdowns and tangents. And when you look back on the legacy you've carved out as the head coach at Stanford, and you look around the college football landscape, particularly D1, and you're one of the few black head coaches at this level. How much pride does that instill in you, knowing everything that you've managed to accomplish in all your years at Stanford?
Oh, I appreciate the question. I try not to look back too much and think too much about legacy, but I think about the mentality of playing great football and graduating. That's been the focus, and I stick to those. And you look back over the years and over 90% graduation rate. A lot of guys have played great football. A lot of guys have gone on to the NFL. A lot of guys, I tell people all the time, like I lead the nation in writing recommendations for business school, for law school, for peers. And for us to focus on playing great football and graduating our guys, that's been what we've done. So that's what I'm really proud of.
And with that, how do you overcome kind of the bias against West Coast teams when you look at the Associated polls when it comes down to, let's say, a 10-win Pac-12 school versus an SEC team that maybe has like 8 wins? Like you guys kind of dealt with it when Christian McCaffrey was here, with the Heisman voting. Some people would say he should have won, but then you look at Alabama, they get the rub.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. How do you overcome that rub of the West Coast bias, no matter what your record is at Stanford?
Well, the biggest thing is we got to win. That's the thing. You got to win. You got to play great football, and really show what kind of program that you have. And that's where we, as a conference, have fallen short here and there. Now, I will say, built into that, this conference has been really deep, and it's really hard to run the table in this conference. And maybe other conferences, it's easier. Playing 8 conference games, and maybe the conference is not quite as deep, so you have 3 games to get up for every year. But our conference, if you slip up, you're going to get beat. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter where it is. You have to play your best football, and play 9 conference games and a difficult out-of-conference schedule is something that maybe the entire country doesn't understand, and maybe other places are given a little bit more of a leeway when they don't play the difficult schedule. They play a couple of tough games and play well in those. I looked at many things over the years, and there were years where we've had great teams in our conference, but they play 7 conference games in a row, and that 6th game in a row, whether that's at the Palouse or at Stanford or at Oregon or wherever, you have that up, and now you fall out of that trying to get into the because of that one game, whereas other conferences, you don't see them play more than 3 in a row. Some of them, you rarely see them play more than back-to-back conference games because there's a bye or there's a non-conference opponent. So for us in our conference, for people to understand, to play 6, 7, sometimes 8 conference games in a row, sometimes without a bye, that's a tough, difficult thing to do. So for us, we have to find a way to win those big games, win the out-of-conference games, and then go win those bowl games in order to truly have a balance, because some people's opinions you're not going to change, and I'm fine with that. But we need to be able to have CLA, because those have been a big part of the Pac-10, the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 story. And selfishly, being Stanford, along playing at Stanford, there have been a lot of great games between Stanford and USC and Stanford and UCLA. So as I said earlier, my hope is that we continue to play those 2 programs, even if they are out-of-conference games.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach. Jamal Madney, LA Football Network. 2 questions for you. You mentioned about Tanner Mckee. What are your larger passing game? Obviously, Bryson, Elijah, Michael Wilson, most of those guys haven't been able to play together over the last couple of years. But now when you pair them on the field together with Tanner, is this a top 2, top 3 passing offense in the conference just waiting to break out? What are your expectations there?
Well, first of all, expectations are for balance, right? I don't want to come out and throw the ball 60 times a game. That's never been what I wanted to do, and it's never proven that wins. What wins is being balanced and being able to run the football as well as throw it. As far as the passing game goes, it's the combination of being efficient and explosive. As you said, we never had a game with all 3 of those guys you mentioned at the same time with Tanner. We never had a game with all three of those guys and Ben Urosic, who we believe is going to be one of the top tight ends in America, really started towards the end of last year. You can make a case last month of the season, America. So now you throw Ben Urosic into that with Tanner, with those three receivers, including, not to mention John Humphreys, who also came in and made some big plays for us. Bryce Ferrall as well, another Southern California guy, made some big plays for us. So for us to look at it and say we want to be one of the most dangerous teams in America, run and pass, and I believe we've got the talent to do it.
And just to follow up, Coach, this morning it felt rather symbolic that it was the Stanford athletic director with the Pac-12 commissioner speaking to the state of the conference. You mentioned the word example. I don't think it's breaking news to say Stanford is arguably the greatest university on earth and most NCAA team championships. Now with the departure of USC and UCLA, does it feel like Stanford is taking on an even greater role as flag bearer of this conference and of the West Coast?
That's a tough question to answer. I believe it's up to all the major universities to be at their absolute best, to really band together to show what this conference is about. Stanford always thinks that way anyway, regardless of what we're doing, is to be the best at what we do, right? Winning championships in multiple sports, but then also being a top 5 university in the world, not just in the United States, to have outstanding young people that come to our place to and do special things. So that's how we think anyway. We talk about Stanford being a launching pad for leaders. We want our people to be leaders, and if we want them to be leaders, they have to think like leaders. So for us, without taking the mantle for the conference, really for us being the best we can be and pushing our young people the best they can be, that's our main goal. But as far as the conference goes, really working with the other 9 schools left in this conference to make this conference better.
Thanks so much, Coach.
We have about 5 minutes left.
Derek Peterson, Saturday Out West. Hey, Coach, you have a ton of returning experience on the offensive line. I guess, can you just speak to the importance of continuity within that group and what your expectations are for them this season?
Yeah, really excited about where we are on the offensive line. I've said this many times that there's a reason why they call it growing pains, because sometimes it hurts. And we had some growing pains last year, but I think what that taught us really is what we do well and what we don't do well. And really looking at this group and having the off season to really put some things together, both for them physically, but then also schematically in technique that we want to see on the field. So Terry Heffernan's done a great job this offseason. Had a really, really good spring with our offensive line. These guys have put the work in. They're bigger, more explosive, more physical than they were a year ago. And they've got a little chip on their shoulders, right? We did not play our brand of football last year to any degree. So now for these guys to come back and for me to continually say that how our team goes depends on the offensive line. And I mean it. And those guys are going to set the table for us. For Tanner to do what he needs to do, for E.J. Smith to do what he needs to do, those guys need to play at a high level. And they've taken that very seriously. And I look at our group right now, and we are where we were before, where I think we've got probably 7 guys that could start. And we may play up to 8, depending on how well these guys come through training camp. And have that big physical group up front. They can also be great pass protectors. They're going to determine how much success we have this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh Newman, Salt Lake Tribune. Hi, David. How are you?
Doing great.
What makes Utah so tough to play, so tough to prep for, and why are they worthy of being the pick to win the league?
Couple things. One, I'm looking forward to playing them since we didn't play them last year. There was a game that was played. We didn't show up and play it. But Kyle has done an outstanding job. Not just it's recruiting and developing and having an identity. And my point to for our team, what I love about their year last year is they didn't start off like gangbusters. They started off difficult, and that's when you see the character of a football team. They didn't fold. They got better. They came together. They throw in Cameron in there, and Cameron takes the next step and has an outstanding year. So they're very deserving, because when you're on top, somebody's got to knock you off. And they got enough guys coming back. They're physical, they're athletic, they're explosive. They've got marquee guys on both sides of the ball. They've got a staff that knows who they are and they play to their strengths. And they're a tough team to beat. So they absolutely deserve that bullseye that the other 11 teams now have on them. And at the same time, they play a style of football that we appreciate, that we try to embody as well. And there have been many years where Utah and Stanford were the two most physical teams in the conference. Utah's the most physical team in the conference, and we're trying to get back there.
And just to follow that up, Rising will have the same offensive coordinator for his entire career. What does it do for the maturation of a quarterback when you can have the same OC for all 4 years you're there?
Yeah, and that's the difficult part with we talk a lot about all the transfers that have happened, but at the same time, there's a lot of coaching changes here and there, and it's a different day and age where it used to be that coaching staff stayed together for a while, and staffs got 3, 5, 6, 7 years to get things going, and it's just not that way anymore. But it helps the quarterback's development when you hear the same voices, when things stay consistent. And I think you'll see that with Tanner as well, coming back on really year 3. Year 1 was a big learning year for him. Year 2, he kind of got out there. Now year 3, we've been fine-tuning things for him to go play. And I think Cam was going to experience that also, that there's now another level that you can reach when everything else has stayed consistent. You're not learning anymore. Now, as I say for those guys, now those guys become graduates. Right now they're working on the graduate level. They're not the undergraduate level. They're working on the graduate level of their offense.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude the morning session. Thank you, David.
Great. Thank you all. Good to see you.
All right, everyone, as I just said, this will conclude the morning session here on the podium. We'll be back with Arizona State at 1 p.m. You're welcome to go up now to the 5th floor to grab some lunch. And you can bring, if you want, you're more than welcome to bring your food back down here. That's fine as well. So, thank you, and we'll see you in about an hour.